Hi, I'm Mary.
And I'm Katie, and this is The Housewife Did It. True crime.
True crime edition.
Yeah. So this one's a little bit different. I think it's, I guess, like our first unsolved. So that'll be interesting. There's also very little evidence. I don't really know. This one interests me so much, but then as I was researching it, I was like, what in the hell did I choose to do? So I'm going to go through what evidence there is, and then most of it is just going to be talking like various leads they followed, various theories, and then we'll get into what we think is most likely. So, have you heard, other than probably from me, have you heard of Jennifer Kesse?
I have. I can't remember where. I've heard of her, and I can't remember like the details of the story, but I know I have heard that name before.
Okay. Anything before we get started? Mary's back, clearly.
Yes.
Just because I didn't mention it in Tuesday's episode, that was my husband. But
Sorry.
God bless you. So, the sisters are back. No more boys. Hee hee.
Yeah.
Alright. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Also, I decided to handwrite these, and I'm probably going to regret that choice when I have to flip through papers. So, bear with me. Okay. So, we'll start with who Jennifer Kesse is or was, more likely. She was born in May 20th, 1981, and she lived in Orlando, Florida at the time that she went missing. She attended the University of Central Florida and graduated with a degree in finance. And at the time, she was a finance manager at Central Florida Investments timeshare company. She was 24 at the time, so pretty well-achieving gal, I'd say, because I'm 24 and I'm no manager. So she will go missing this will be in 2006. So it's been quite a while now. She had just bought a condo in Orlando, so she's making her first big old purchases too at 24. This condo will be discussed at length throughout. So Jennifer and her family were extremely close, and her parents refer to her as their love child. How cute. They say that she loved children and would have been a great mother. She talked to her mom and her best friend daily, or at least like somebody, if not her mom, then her dad or her brother. They described her as a straight shooter. She told it like it was. They said she wasn't mean, but she was straightforward. Her mom described that Jennifer's home was always neat as a pin, except that she was a car and bathroom pig. Okay. Clothes all over the floor of the bathroom, shit in the car, that type of thing.
She sounds like a very normal 24-year-old woman.
Yeah, that she is. Another aspect of Jennifer, described by all of her family and friends, was that she was incredibly safety conscious. When she was alone and out, like at the store or walking to her car or anything, she would always be on the phone with someone, referred to as a safe call, either her parents or her boyfriend. She always checked in with her family, no matter where to tell them where she was or throughout her day. She carried pepper spray. Her and her mom watched a lot of crime shows, specifically Law and Order. Her mom says they thought that was the most realistic. Now, in 2006, true crime wasn't the world that it is now, so maybe. Yeah. And when they would watch crime shows, they would plan for ways that she would either escape or avoid dangerous situations, and they would talk about that, which I think is, when we watch Dateline with our mom, you're like, oh, that would never happen to me, because I would do this. For example, they had talked just that past Christmas, I think, about like if you're carjacked or like taken in a car, like speeding the car or wrecking the car, yelling fire if you're attacked instead of like help, because people respond better to yelling fire. They've talked about like if you're in the trunk of a car, kicking out the headlight or looking for a latch release. So she would have,
Our fave movie.
yes. So she would have been aware of some things she could
She
do.
was very prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Borderline paranoid.
Yeah, she's very prepared. Yeah.
Yeah, she's ready.
Yeah.
For anything.
She had a younger brother named Logan, who says she was very protective of him, and a boyfriend named Rob. They'd been together about a year. He lived in Fort Lauderdale, so they were long distance. I think it's about 3 hours or so. If there's anyone from Florida, I'm probably wrong, but that's what I heard. Also, cuteness. Rob is British, so
That is cuteness.
yeah. So, into the timeline of what we know.
Okay.
So, Jennifer had recently purchased a condo, like I said. It was called, or at a complex called Mosaic at Millennia. It was across the street from a brand new high-end shopping mall called the Millennia Mall. She moved in on Thanksgiving Day, November 24th, 2005, and was encouraged by her parents to do so. They came and looked at it with her. They all felt it was safe. They feel guilty about this choice now. Mm-hmm. But, of course, they should not. So, the thing about Mosaic is that some of their units, or probably eventually all of their units, were transitioning from rented apartments to purchased condos. She was the first person to purchase a condo there.
Okay.
So basically there was like a condo side at this point, and like this side was like still apartments.
Yeah.
So at the time, she was like one of very few people living on her side, living on the condo side. So it would have been relatively isolated.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as an apartment complex, but I think that there was not a lot over near her unit. When she moved in, there was still work being done pretty frequently. So I think she moved in knowing this. It's not like she was just like fucked in the end and they found out there was stuff to be done. Maybe she even got a discount. But so they were still painting and fixing odds and ends.
Even in her like unit?
Mm-hmm. So they would have been in and out of her unit a good bit, which we'll hear about. So in January of 2006, I was about to say 2006, as I read it on paper. In January of 2006, Jennifer and her boyfriend go on vacation to St. Croix, January 18th, and they return on Sunday, January 22nd. That night, she stayed at Rob's house instead and went straight to work from there Monday morning, which sounds crazy to me that you would drive 3 hours to work, but maybe they flew into Fort Lauderdale, and so it just, who knows. Anyway, so she did not go home to her home Sunday night, and then she went straight to...
So he lived far away from her?
Yeah, he lived, I think, like 3 hours.
Okay.
And she lived near her work, so I would assume still about...
Do you know how long they had been together?
A year.
Okay.
So, or about a year. So, she works Monday, leaves for work around 6 p.m. She calls her parents, talks to them on her way back home, and then she goes back home. At 9:57 p.m., she's on the phone with Rob, talking before bed. There's discussion about, like, this was a little bit of a, like, not really, but, like, a little bit of a sad conversation. She basically said, like, why don't you miss me as much as I miss you? I don't think there was, like, a fight. I think it was simply that.
Like long
Yeah.
distance, like, yeah,
And
you know.
and they had just gotten back from, I do know. They had just gotten back from a vacation, so,
Yeah.
like, whatever. But he says this was a really short conversation, and then she went to bed. So between 8 and 9 a.m. the next morning, January 24th, yeah, whew, that threw me off. It was 2 days after, but it's because she didn't stay at her house on Monday. So between 8 and 9 a.m., January 24th, Jennifer did not call Rob on her way to work, which he noted because she normally would have. He called her a few times, and her phone was going directly to voicemail. But he thought, like, maybe she went to work early, is already in this meeting. She had a meeting that day, so he was like, I'll catch her at lunch or whatever. And he did leave her voicemails to call him back. Around 11 o'clock, though, Jennifer had not shown up to work. Luckily, Jennifer's employer knew her family, and that Jennifer does not often no-call, no-show to work. So her employer called Jennifer's dad and said she's not at work, she's not answering her calls, she did not call in this morning. And her dad said, like, hold up, I'll call her. We have this rule in our house that, like, you always, always, always answer for us. Like, no matter what, you answer for your parents. Now, he seems confident in that rule.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't know how often 24-year-olds are like, well, my dad says I gotta answer. But...
Or, like, how often does your phone ring and you don't notice it's rung?
Also, what if she was in a meeting? I mean, obviously she's not because she's not at work, but, like, what if you called her during a meeting? She probably wouldn't answer.
Yeah.
But either way, they swear that, like, their kids would always answer their calls. So he calls, goes directly to voicemail, and immediately, her parents are living in Tampa at this point. I don't know how far that is. A few hours, also. But they immediately drive down to Orlando.
Okay.
They, like, tell her brother, like, Logan, we're going. So, on their way down to Orlando, they're calling the jails, they're calling hospitals, they're calling police. They're, like, trying to see if she's anywhere hurt, And then they call her apartment complex, and they get a hold of, like, a maintenance manager named Brian. I don't know if it matters, but... So they ask Brian to look for her car. She has, like, a assigned parking spot. So they're like, can you look in her spot? And he's like, there's no car there. So they ask him to go into her unit, and he's like, I can't go alone. And they're like, okay, we will wait. Go get someone. So he went and got a second staff person, and they went in her unit. She wasn't in there. Everything looked normal. No sign of forced entry. No, like, phone or wallet laying there.
Okay.
Everything looks squeaky clean. So, the parents and her brother are immediately suspicious of apartment staff for this crime. Or not a crime yet, but for her being missing.
Disappearance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Jennifer had previously felt uncomfortable with them in and out of her apartment. Obviously, as people who've lived in apartments can attest, most maintenance people are men. She's a cute, blonde, 24-year-old living by herself. Any of her closest family and boyfriend are hours away. So, and she's obviously very safety conscious, so I think that's understandable. There had been recently when she moved in November, and this is happening in January, it's all recently, but recently there were people trying to, like, paint, workers in there trying to paint her unit, and she would always, like, be on the phone with someone while they were in her unit, and so she was telling her dad, like, I need to go, but they're not done, so, like, what do I do? And he basically said, like, ask them to leave me a can of paint and I'll just paint it. And they were like, we can't leave you paint. And so he was like, tell them to get out of your apartment. It's white fucking paint. We will paint it. Like, get them out so that you can leave. So they did. That's just a story of a time that they're in her apartment. I don't know if they ever got to paint it. So, her brother Logan says that they arrived at her apartment and there were 2 workers sitting in a van. And he starts like tapping on their window to ask them questions, if they've seen her, if they've seen her car, and they refused to roll down their window and speak to him. So he thought that was weird. He finds another worker just like standing outside. Logan admits he came in pretty hot with the questions. Right? Like, I just start throwing questions at this guy.
Blame him.
Right. But then the worker maintenance person just starts screaming, like, no, nothing, no English.
Oh, no.
And he gets down on his knees as if, like, pleading. And Logan finds this incredibly suspicious. However, it is noteworthy that many of the maintenance workers did not speak English, at least not natively, or were undocumented. And so this white man screaming in their face about some girl that's missing, either he really can't understand you, or he's terrified right now.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying this person's not weird, but I don't know that that's enough.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, if he's, like, on his knees, like, please no, like, if he thought that, like, Logan was, like, trying to, like, rob him or something.
Yeah. Or even, like, I don't know what the climate of Florida in 2006 was, but, like, I don't know, he probably scared this is, like, immigration, or just some random dude that's, like, or he kidnapped your sister. Not saying it's not possible. Who knows? So, at this time in 2006, Mosaic at Millennia did not have any security cameras. Which is strange, because it's right across from a brand new high-end mall. This is not 1980. I don't know why there are not security cameras. When the family entered her apartment, which I don't really know what time this was, but I assume if they left around 11, this was like early afternoon.
Okay.
But when they enter her apartment, they agree. It looks totally normal. Looks like she was there that morning. There were pajamas on the floor in her bathroom. The shower was still a little bit wet. So it looked like the shower was run that morning. Like, she took off pajamas and took a shower. The bed was unmade, like someone had slept in it. There were like 2 skirts and a pair of pants laid out on the bed, like as if you're picking your outfit, you know?
Yeah.
There was no sign of forced entry. Her car was not present. They didn't find they didn't find her briefcase, her phone, her wallet, her purse,
which normally that's like one of the first things you hear in like one of these cases is like, and their purse was on the counter.
Right.
So like clearly they didn't just up and leave.
Yeah.
So like that makes it interesting because it's not there.
Yeah. So it's like,
maybe did she just up and leave?
It's as if, yes, she left for work, or like that's where she was headed.
Yeah.
So it is also believed that she had an intrusion alarm in her room. The alarm was disarmed at this time, which could have an explanation in just a second. And then she also had a button behind her bed, like a panic button, that was working and plugged in. So presumably was not taken from her bed.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's heavy.
Yeah. So her brother said that him and his friends stayed at Jennifer's condo that weekend while she was in St. Croix. They said Orlando's fun. We just wanted to come hang. Whatever. She knew they were there. They believe that is why her alarm was disarmed.
Okay.
Because her brother and his friends had been in and out of her apartment. She just got back that Monday night and then slept there. So, like, she may just not have turned it on.
I don't know though. She seems like that'd be the first thing she does when she gets home.
That's what I thought too, but then
You
I
know,
think
especially
like,
if she slept there. Like I feel
yeah,
like there's no way she didn't turn it on before she went to sleep.
unless she just thinks like I have this panic button behind my bed, so like I'm not like worried about it, you know? And maybe it's a whole pain in the ass to turn it on, but I thought that too. Like I feel like
Yeah.
even if you're back for just a night, like I would think you would turn it back on.
Yeah.
She could have forgotten.
Anytime I'm staying in a house with like that kind of security system, like the moment I get in the door, if I know I'm not turning right around and leaving,
Mm-hmm.
like that system is armed.
Yeah. So that's a theory, but who knows? So while Logan and his friends were staying in her apartment, his friend Travis had accidentally left his phone. I think it was like a work phone, so it was important that he got it back. So Logan told Jennifer, please mail it back. We're not coming back to Orlando, dude. And she said, like, I'll mail it tomorrow when I head to work. In addition to her phone, her briefcase, her purse, her wallet not being found, Travis's phone was also not found in her apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Also a good guess that she did take it with her, planning to mail it out that day. So that is pretty much it for the crime scene. Or the room that may not even be a crime scene. So now we're going to fast forward 48 hours. So 48 hours later, on January 26th, someone called in that the car that they saw on the news as Jennifer Kesse's 2004 black Chevy Malibu was sitting in front of their apartment. Now, this good.
Is all this shit in it?
No. So the apartment complex, they confirmed that it was her car.
Mm-hmm.
The apartment complex was called Huntington on the Green. It's about 1 mile from her condo.
Oh.
However...
Did they notice it before?
Mm-mm. However, even a mile away, it is said that this was a very different neighborhood than Jen's. It was much lower income, much higher crime rates. And so the question is, right, like why would you leave her car so close?
Mm-hmm.
Now, a few theories arise with this. Was it so that someone could walk back? Like, they drive her car, like they gotta walk somewhere. Could it be that simply the drastic change in, like, income made them think, like, no one will look here? Which is possible, but, like, you'd still think...
That's risky.
Yeah. So, luckily, there were 2 cameras at Huntington on the Green.
So this is a lower income neighborhood and they have cameras?
Yes. Which I guess in some way with higher crime rate makes sense, but you will find that these cameras are not super helpful. But one caught video of the person dropping off the car in the parking lot around noon on the day that Jen went missing. So,
can you tell it's not her?
It is not her. But you really cannot tell shit from that video. Okay. It's like essentially a stick figure. But you can see them like parking this car. They can see that the person sat in the car for about 30 seconds before getting out. But there's no details from that video.
Okay.
I also think noon is a little crazy to wrap my head around. Like, assuming that she did leave for work that day, like assuming that she probably went missing on her way to work and you're already dropping the car off by midday, like this is quick. I would think. So there's another camera by the pool that catches black and white still images. And it catches them like...
That's useful.
Yeah. Well, it might have been in a different world, but not this one. It catches them a few seconds apart. Unfortunately, each still image that was captured, the person's face was blocked by the poles of the fence. So, you could look this up. There's pictures of it, but We
I
can
will look.
we can put it somewhere. um, it does seem from these photos that the person is wearing light colored, what look to be work clothes, dark boots or tall, like high top Converse, but something tall, and either a bun, a ponytail, or a hat to the back, something poking out of the back. There.
How do they know it's not her?
Well, this person has dark hair.
Okay. You said it was like a stick figure, so I didn't know if you
No,
could tell.
from the video, it is like you can't see really shit.
Okay.
But then when they can check the still images, it's the same person. I mean, I think they can probably see.
Is it a woman?
So there's debate. I mean, I think the end conclusion is no.
Okay.
But people have argued because this person is short, pretty small.
You said they had a ponytail.
Right. Or a something. And it seems they have large feet. But I think it looks like a man with a bun.
Okay.
I think it looks like a man bun. But I also NASA was trying to like guess the height, and there were like a lot of mixed reports on this because they were like they were like comparing this person's height to the height of the fence, but not realizing that the camera is at an angle. NASA. So at first they're like this. They're like, this person's 5'3". It's got to be a woman.
They're 5'3".
And then I think they started realizing like it could be anywhere to like 5'7". Like we don't fucking know how tall this person is. So later, an investigative dog, smelly dog thing, followed. What do you call those? Just a police dog?
Yeah.
Well, I wrote investigative dog, and then I thought that sounded too serious for the dog.
I think a lot of time they're just called like by their breed, like a bloodhound.
Well, I don't know their breed. Okay.
I know, I'm just saying. But like like a police dog.
Okay.
Canine. Unit.
Yeah. Later, a police canine.
No. That's not what I said.
That's what they say on the other ones I listened to. Okay. Later, a police dog followed this person's scent, I guess from the car, I don't fucking know, out onto the main road in the direction of Mosaic.
Okay.
The walk from Huntington on the Green to Mosaic would have been about 15 minutes.
Okay.
I guess they could have been picked up. It didn't really say how far the dog tracked. Like, did he track all the way back to Mosaic, or was it just, like, in that direction, and then it stopped, or the dog stopped because, like, they didn't need to go that far? I don't really know. But it certainly seems that they started to walk back. Police would find that the inside of her car was very clean.
Unusual.
Very neat. And there was not a phone. There was not keys. There was not a purse. There was not a briefcase. There was no iPod. Like, these were things they were looking for of hers that were not in the car. They did find a boot print inside on the driver's side rug, which I think they like figured out that this is not Jen's shoe size. There were also, this was not released till later, but we now know that there were also signs of a struggle on the hood of the car. So there are handprints that drag back as if scribbling, like fingers, which looks like someone was thrown down onto the hood. Essentially.
And then pulled off.
Yeah. They found that her cell phone was not pinging off any towers. It was off. Her bank card had not been used at all. So, I mean, like, the theory that she just, like, left her car is not great. So, the car is pretty much the extent of our actual evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to get into the leads. Everyone wants to know about the boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Rob Allen's alibi checked out. He lived 3 hours away in Fort Lauderdale. He had work that day.
Yeah.
Not him. She also...
He's not a tiny person with giant feet.
Yeah, who wears painter's clothes and has a man bun.
A tiny person with giant feet. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Okay? Keep that in mind, everyone.
She also had an ex-boyfriend who actually was at a bar near her condo, like across from her condo, the night of January 23rd. It is said that this ex-boyfriend had been wanting to get back together with her. I'm going to have a unsatisfying ending to this. Investigators looked into him and ruled him out. And that is all I know. So, we either trust them or we don't. But I don't know anything else about this ex-boyfriend, so I'm choosing to move on. Another person that they considered a good person of interest is someone that's only been identified as the initials MR. So he had been arrested for various assaults in Florida around the time. Like, he was committing assaults around the time of her disappearance.
Okay.
He also was short and has large feet. He was a painter. And that's all I have.
It was him.
Listen.
Okay.
Mary's like, case closed.
It is. I mean, like,
it's not.
It's gotta be him.
The big feet, dude. I need y'all to be...
How many other painters do you know with tiny bodies and big ass feet?
Maybe some.
Okay.
So, one of the leads we have the most details on came from someone who actually recognized the person in the still shots.
No, they didn't.
They feel very confident that this is who this is.
Okay.
Mary's done listening because she's like, it's MR. I'm zoned out.
No, but not like. But I haven't looked at the stills, but the way you described them is satisfying to pull the entire time. Yeah. They don't recognize him.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I like this lead.
Okay.
So, just from seeing this person's body and not their face, this person was a former housekeeper at Mosaic, I guess. Maybe like when they were apartments, so it may have been called something different at the time. But they identified this person as a man named Chino, who is a maintenance worker at Mosaic at Millennia. Mm-hmm. We don't know any other part of Chino's name. He had told this woman, they had like a pretty extensive like social relationship.
The woman who called in?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he had told this woman that he lived at Mosaic with his girlfriend, but no one was ever with him. He never said what unit he lived in, and he had no car on the property. So, a little bit weird. She said that he would just come knock on her door at random hours, just socially, and he would just ask for like book recommendations, movie recommendations. He would say like, I just had a fight with my girlfriend, but she's like, why are you always fighting with your girlfriend?
She's like, I don't fucking care.
She's like, why are you always fighting at 2 a.m. like with this girlfriend I ain't never seen? That's weird. But I do think like,
don't you wish you had a car so you could drive off?
Yeah, but I also do think she said that they would like hang out, like she would let him in.
Yeah.
So, Chino supposedly did speak to the police and take a polygraph, which I don't have the results to, but I'm guessing they were okay. I don't know. But Chino will say something in a minute that's weird. So, this housekeeper feels...
I was gonna say, I think it would kind of make sense. One, because, like, this person clearly, like, walked back toward there, so even if he doesn't live there, like, he works there, so
Mm-hmm.
he's probably heading in that direction
Yeah.
in the middle of the day. Um, but also, does this woman, like, think that like, is the implication that when he's saying he lives there with his girlfriend that he's talking about Jennifer?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Like, I was gonna say maybe he's, like, created this, like, false reality in his head that Jennifer is his girlfriend and that they do live in the complex together,
Yeah.
and maybe, like, these, like, fights at 2 a.m. are, like, more
Delusions.
so, like, him realizing that, like, they are not together,
Yeah.
and then, like, this just kind of, like, came to a head, and that's what happened?
Yeah. I think she's just insinuating that, like, he is lying, that he does
Yeah.
not have a girlfriend there. I also think that if.
He does have a girlfriend, she just goes to a different school. You don't know her.
I also think that if Jin, like, knew Chino at all, or, like, had
Mhm.
someone try to socially speak to her, that she
Yeah.
would have said to her parents, like, this guy keeps knocking on my door. You know, like, I think she would
Yeah.
have
I
reported.
don't think that he did. I wonder if he, like,
Watches
completely
her.
did it
Yeah.
in his head. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, like, that's my girlfriend."
Yeah. It's possible. Um, so the housekeeper feels confident that this is who she sees in the footage. Whatever. Two different people also ID'd him from the footage.
Is it from the footage? Okay.
Mm-hmm. He was known to be seen around with another staff person just named Ben. Just Chino and Ben. Just hanging out.
Europeans only.
He denies that it's him in the video.
I'm sure he does.
He also said, quote, whatever I knew, the FBI has that information. End quote. What in the fuck?
Better watch your fucking words, Gino.
Billy seems to think that there is some sort of, like, he gave them a bigger fish, like some deal was made.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I keep hearing some shit.
Sammy keeps sneezing.
Sammy, stop it. Okay, so that's really all we have on Chino as a person, but
Okay.
I'm going to get into a lot of details about Mosaic, and you can decide what that makes you think about Chino.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
What he was wearing in the video, or what the person in the video was wearing, is that, like, I guess, what the employees at Mosaic, like the maintenance employees, wore?
So the staff at Mosaic are, like, incredibly unofficial. Like, there is no record of staff. There's essentially, like, a maintenance manager, and that person just, like, under the table outsources people to come do maintenance.
Okay.
So I don't know that they all wore the same thing.
Okay.
And because it's black and white, there's been, like, debate about whether it's khakis or painter's pants. But to me, the outfit looks to be one color.
Yeah.
Which to me signifies, like, a painter's or work outfit.
Or like a maintenance job.
Right. So I don't know that it's confirmed that was, like, a uniform, but I think that, like, in 2006 in Florida, people feel confident that might have been what maintenance workers were wearing around places. So, okay. Generally, there's lots of strange things about the complex. First being that staff is incredibly unofficial. There are no formal maintenance requests. It's just word of mouth. So, you just find you a maintenance guy in the parking lot and you tell him what you need.
I think it's odd that she owned this property and they were still doing construction and maintenance on it because, like, that's what you do when somebody rents something.
Yeah, I mean, I think condos are different because, like, they have to upkeep a building. And like I said, I think it's possible that she rented with bought it with some sort of understanding that, like, they will be doing months of work until it's done.
Yeah.
But I also think that's why...
It's also odd that an apartment complex with some rentals has no formal maintenance request situation.
Right. Very strange. So... this means that they would just come by anytime. All maintenance staff had keys to all units, including Chino and Ben. Uh, they would come in a lot of times without knocking,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'd be like, "Oh my god, wrong apartment!" If they found someone
I
in
don't
there.
like it.
Yeah, I don't either. I think this is why this one stuck with me so much,
Yeah.
because
I'm
it
thinking
freaks
of
me
like
out.
the apartment that we lived in before we got our house. And like we did have like formal maintenance requests. And it sounds like in some ways similar because the maintenance, it was like a separate maintenance company that
Mm-hmm.
they worked with. And it was like they just wore like t-shirts and jeans and like whatever. But the way it worked, I think, was like you put in a maintenance request and the maintenance company people would have to go to the leasing office and
And
like
get a key.
confirm, yes,
Mm-hmm.
and get a key. Like they just weren't just walking around
Mm-hmm.
with keys for everyone, and they had to send you a confirmation time of like when they were coming
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that you would be there and that it would work for you, especially because like one time the maintenance guy told us that like he came in and um we weren't there because we had like missed the confirmation email or something, and he said he heard our dog bark and he was like, nope, not
Mm-hmm.
today, and he just turned around and left. And he said that like if we're not there, like he can't be in there anyway,
Yeah.
but like especially if there's like a pet in there, like he didn't want to be in there.
Yeah.
But that uh, feels unsafe.
It is proven unsafe in a little bit, but
Well,
uh,
proven unsafe because this girl is missing.
well, but we don't know why. So suspected unsafe in Jin's case, proven unsafe in another. So there were a lot of empty units, obviously, and a lot of these maintenance people would stay in them. Um,
Squat.
yeah, because they had keys. As we've said, they may not have had places to live. Um, so they're staying in these empty units a lot of the time, or at least hanging out in them. They're like ripping carpets up in a lot of the units. I mean, I assume Jin's was like the most done if they let her move into it. So they're doing a bunch of stuff in other units around. There's also no security guard. There are gates, but they remain open. Someone reported that while living there, at least 3 to 4 different occasions, they had seen dead dogs wrapped in blankets or rugs at the dumpster. And they thought, like, surely no one would do that with their family dog. But then also,
Yeah.
why would it happen 4 times?
Yeah.
They did say that Mosaic backed up to like an ASPCA or something, but there was like a full fence between them. So like it's like assumed.
No, I think that's suspicious.
Okay.
I think the ASPCA is suspicious.
Sure. I also just think somebody was killing dogs.
Yeah.
So
Which, you know, is not far off
mm-hmm.
from people.
Yes, it's true. Someone else living there reported seeing someone taking her photo on different occasions. So one time from the ground floor up into her, I think she was on like the 3rd floor, and not with like a phone, with a camera with a long lens.
This is not Jennifer. This is a different person.
Yeah, these are just like testimonies from the complex. One time it was from the ground. One time it was from a unit across the building, like from a different window. She said she reported this. Management did nothing. Mm-hmm. Now we will get into a story from a woman named Tammy. Tammy was a resident a few years after Jin's disappearance. She did not know of Jin's disappearance until later, and she tells a pretty horrifying story. She filed around 24 complaints with management about someone frequently entering her home while she was not there. The evidence for this included finding large, presumably man-sized footprints in the carpet, food and drinks missing, and sometimes like the wrappers in her trash for for things she did not drink. She said, like, one time I bought a 6-pack of Dr. Pepper. I had not had one, and I came home and one was in my trash.
Ugh.
Yeah. She found cigarettes on her patio, in her planter. One time they were, like, used and in the soil of her planter, but another time she found new ones laid across her, like, mantle outside, her, whatever that's called, windowsill. And so she felt like someone was, like, taunting her.
Yeah.
She also found urine on her toilet seat. Her friend said, like, you sure you didn't just pee in the middle of the night? And she's like, yeah, I'm sure.
I pee sitting down. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not a freaking mess just because it's nighttime. She attempted to change the locks, but management would not let her.
Yeah.
I will say I've had that problem, and I fought them hard enough that they changed my locks, but...
Yeah, I mean, like, I get why they can't, in theory, like, it's a rental, and, like, they would have to, like, change the keys for, like, the leasing office and everything, but when you are giving the keys out to everyone and their mother...
And you have no list of the people.
Right, yeah. Like, there's, like... And somebody is, like, having someone continuously essentially break into their apartment with a key
and use,
that you gave them.
Use their items. So, like, steal from them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Eventually, Tammy's story gets even scarier. So she was at home one night in many layers of clothing. She says this is something she had started to do because she was so scared that someone had put cameras in her home. Like, if they're in and out of my home all the time, like, how do I know they didn't plant cameras? So she says she was just watching TV, laying on her couch, when she noticed a shadow outside of her window on her patio. She assumed that it was an animal, so she went and banged on the door, and she saw that it was not an animal, but it was a man standing about 6 feet from her in the corner of her patio, pleasuring himself.
Ew.
He was wearing work clothes.
Mm-hmm.
She screamed. She's a genius. She decided she didn't have a gun, so she just decided to, with her mouth, mimic the sound of cocking a gun, apparently effectively, and screamed, "Get out of here, motherfucker, or I'll blow your fucking head off." Whatever. Better than that.
She's the kid. Oh my god, she's the kid from Home Alone.
Yeah! And he ran off to a running van. Tammy believes that he was planning to take her that night.
Oh my gosh.
I think there's other explanations for why the van was running. I mean, like, he still was committing a crime, so it could have just been his like, runaway van. Caught? Right.
Yeah.
But I also, if you add the, like, taunting cigarettes laid out and, like, all of that stuff, like, I don't think it's crazy to think that that's possible.
Yeah.
So, police did not really investigate this incident, so this does not give us a suspect for Jen's disappearance. There was no security to take license plate information when this person came into the complex, if they even needed to, because they could have worked there. So, that's it for Tammy's case, but...
Yeah. I wonder, because it sounds like similar to the woman who, like, called in about Chino, with, like, the difference being that, like, that woman was allowing Chino to, like, maintain a friendship with her, and, like, Tammy obviously, like, didn't know that someone was, like, coming into her apartment.
Right.
But again, it makes me wonder, like, maybe it was Chino, and maybe he thought Tammy was his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And, like, he just, like, has, like, delusions.
I love you giving Chino the benefit of the doubt, I will say. That he's suffering...
I'm not giving you the benefit of the doubt.
That he's
trying
suffering...
to figure out why he thinks he has a girlfriend.
That he's suffering delusions and not just breaking into women's homes.
I mean, but, like, wouldn't it make sense if he's, like, breaking into this house every fucking day and taking their food and drink and, like, doing whatever the fuck he wants? And leaving it
pretty obviously.
He thinks he lives there?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, the next lead doesn't give us a suspect, but gives us some information to consider. So way later, I think like 2020, a witness came forward.
Oh.
Yeah. A witness came forward and said that on the morning of January 24th, near the exit of Mosaic, she saw Jennifer's black Chevy Malibu driving erratically. This.
Why are you just not telling people this?
Well, yeah, stupid. But this is what Jen's mom said she would have done if she was taken in a car, right? Like, if she's driving, she could be doing it. If she's in the passenger seat, she could be doing it. I will say if she's incapacitated, I don't know why the driver would be doing that. Unless this person
it's Chino,
doesn't have a license.
He's driving a car because he doesn't have one.
Right. Right. Or doesn't have a license. Who knows? It was steering from side to side. She said it seemed like a struggle was going on. However, she and her husband were on their way to his chemo and they were running late, so they did not have time to stop. They said had they known what they know now, they would have stopped. I will say, slight critique, you still could have called someone.
Before it's been 15 years.
While your husband's getting chemo, there's usually time to make some calls. So
yeah. Last time I checked, and like, I for sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but being late to one chemo appointment, does it really like affect the treatment that much?
It may not have been affecting the treatment. It may have been like a place was charged. Right, like
yeah.
The place could just be mad that you're late.
But yeah, waiting 15 years, being like, well, we were late.
You're late again. You're late again, ma'am.
Yeah. This is a habit of yours.
Yeah. So, yeah, they said that when news broke of finding the car, they knew it was the same car. Now news broke 48 hours later.
Right.
Not 15 years. But in 2019, a witness had come forward to say what she saw 13 years earlier, which is really interesting. And I had not heard this the first time I listened to this case. So she did not want to identify herself, and she even had them use like a voice distorter. So we don't know her. She said that she was at her friend's house in Orange County, Florida, so like in Orlando still, overlooking Fisher Lake, outside in the backyard by a pool that overlooks the lake. I will say I'm pretty sure she said this happened in November. Not to say she was in the pool. She was just in the backyard. But she said at this time, this was the only house in the area. Other than that, it was just a field behind this lake. There were other houses like being built, but this was the only house that like people lived in. This lake is about a mile from Jen's place. She said that she saw a pickup truck back up to a lake. Again, I think this is like November of 2006. So I think it's just like months later in that same year. So she sees a pickup truck back up to the lake. A man gets out, takes out a 6x8 piece of rolled up carpet. He continuously is like looking around. He dumps the rolled up carpet in the lake, waits a while, and watches it sink.
She's a dog.
She feels incredibly confident that there was something in that carpet. She said it was like heavy, it was like very thick. I also don't know that a carpet would sink very.
And I don't know also understand why you would need to throw your carpet in a lake.
Right.
For any reason.
Yeah, she did. She did say at one point that he like looked in her direction and she like ducked. So she was really scared, and I think that's why she's like hiding her identity still. Once they found this out in 2019, the police did send a dive team in, but the Kesse family says that the dive team only checked the area that she said the carpet was dropped in. 13 years later, though, likely it would not be in the same spot.
Right.
Even without an ocean current, still wouldn't be in the same spot.
I'm not from Florida, but I can confidently tell you that water moves. So if you live on the water, you should know that.
Yep.
And if your job is to dive, you should know that.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
So, oh my God. Okay. So the Kesse family actually, I think, got their own dive team later to look.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was found.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially her dad says, like, I don't know without draining this lake if we will find anything.
Right.
In my humble opinion, somebody's body is in that lake. Unless someone came back, dove, and got it back out in 13 years. Yeah. I think we could solve some sort of case if we drained that lake.
Or it's the ASPCA.
Mary Rowe.
No, but that is, okay, so maybe it's not the ASPCA, but if that's how all of those dogs were disposed of in the apartment complex, or the condo complex, that's suspicious.
We're also frequently ripping up carpets at the apartment complex. Somebody. So, that is pretty much it for evidence. I'm going to go through a little legal battle that her family had with Orlando police, and then we can decide what we think happened.
Okay.
So, in December 2018, the Kesse family filed a lawsuit against the Orlando PD and the city of Orlando for Jennifer's case files, because the case had not been worked on in like 7 years actively. But Florida law or something says that if a case is active, they can't release the records. So the family had to prove that the case isn't actually active, even though Orlando PD was saying, like, oh, no, it's still active. Which, like, if you haven't touched it in 7 years, like, it's not active. This was a long battle, which they have finally settled. But the family did end up paying $18,648 just for the copies of the records, not for legal fees, not for the years long battle, just for paying for copies of paper. And they got over 15,000 pages. So there's a lot of information there, and their PI has since been looking at it, but I mean, it's even been 5 years since that. So that is all I've got. Are you set on Chino now, Miss Ma'am?
I think so. I'm trying to look at the pictures, but these like black and white stills, are very bad. Let me look at a picture of Chino.
Yeah, the pictures of Chino that I found, I can't tell if they're like circa 2006 or if they're like now. So I'm like, it doesn't really look right to me, but I don't know what he looked like almost 20 years ago.
I mean, I think it's possible. I think it was definitely someone who lived or worked in her condo, complex or whatever. And I think that it's very likely the same person that was messing with Tammy.
Possibly.
But you said Tammy was there after? And I also, though, I feel like what would be smart is for Chino to not work there anymore.
Right. Especially if he's, like, talked to the FBI.
Right. Like, hopefully he wasn't still there.
Yeah.
When Tammy lived there, so I don't know. I think that the information that they had on Chino seemed like kind of limited.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he says like creepy stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that if that is the same person who is messing with Tammy, and then we connect like all of those things, I think that it makes sense. I do also think there is definitely somebody in that lake. But Chino don't have a car. So who could it have been?
Yeah. So
I don't know.
Few things. Feel confident that it was the morning. There are people who believe that, like, she went out that night after she told her boyfriend goodnight and like went out to the bar, and everyone's like, no, like I don't think she did that. Why would she take her briefcase to the bar? You silly billies.
And her brother's friend's phone.
Yeah. So I definitely think it was that morning. I think it's possible that she was locking her door back, got snatched in the hallway, or once she made it to her car, because the throwing on the hood could be at another time. I also think with all those empty units and carpets being ripped up and walls being painted, like whatever happened to her could have fully taken place in an empty unit. And then the carpets are thrown out. Like, what are you going to do with any evidence? Nothing. For sure. The whole, like, car driving erratically makes me think, like, was she alive when she was in the car? But I also tend to feel like she had to have been killed at Mosaic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There's no proof that she was killed in the car.
Yeah, and if the car only drove a mile away, like, where did her body go?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Which also, like, the quickness of, like, maybe leaving for work around 8, and then the car's being parked by 12, like, could be that something was still happening to her, and this person is just like, let's get rid of the car. I tend to believe there was more than one person. That's not to say that they couldn't have walked all the way back, but you have, like, if they're connected to this truck dumping the carpet in the lake, if someone's got to... I also think, like, these are minor things that I didn't mention, so might feel like I left stuff out, but I think they said Jennifer was, like, 5'9", and she was, like, incredibly... She had pepper spray. She was incredibly, like, safety conscious. I think she would have, like, put up a fight, and so to think that this person we see in the still shots did everything by themselves doesn't work for me. Could be, but I think it's possible. I definitely think it's someone from the complex, but I also think, to your point, it could be the same person that sexually harassed Tammy, but it also could just be that this is, like, the culture of this place, and this is just, like, what is allowed to happen. So they could have all been killing dogs as, like, a group, or there could be one of them that's sick in the head and that's killing dogs and then ends up a murderer. But, like, I don't know. But I definitely think it's at Mosaic. For sure.
Yeah. I definitely think whoever dumped the rug or carpet in the lake is the same person that was killing dogs.
I do too, right?
I'm sorry that I blame the ASPCA. It wasn't them. I'm sorry.
It could have been. But...
Are they a kill shelter?
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. But I also think, like, the way the person described seeing the dogs was, like, blankets and rugs. And then, like, the way the person describes the lake is, like, carpet or rug. So in my mind, it's like, oh, if they're ripping up carpets, I bet the dogs are wrapped in that carpet. I bet that's the body of the carpet, or the lake body. But, like, it sounds like it might not be carpet. It might be, like, a mixture of things.
Yeah.
Which, like, a blanket could be... I mean, it could be anyone. But I guarantee... It
could also be, like, a painting drop cloth.
Right. Yeah. Sheets. It could be... I mean, people in maintenance that have dirt everywhere, like, have blankets in the back of the van or whatever. Or it's, like, blankets are cheap. So, I don't know.
That's scary.
Yeah. Her family has said that their life has ended for any purpose other than looking for her. That they have moments of laughter, which are pretty much always followed by feeling bad about that. Her brother has kids that she obviously won't get to meet. I guess not obvious. She could be alive. I feel pretty confident that she's not. But her family, almost every year, if you check the headlines, they're like, this is the year, like, this is the year we're going to find her, or find out what happened. And, yeah.
I hope they do.
Yeah.
I think that, like you said about it being in an empty unit, like, the fact that there's been no, like, blood or anything
Mm-hmm.
found, like, even though they found her car and, like, stuff, like, I think it would make a lot of sense if it was, like, something like a rug or carpet that was, like, pulled up afterwards,
Yeah.
um, especially if they just immediately rolled her in that same carpet
Mm-hmm.
and took her out to a
Wherever.
lake.
Right,
Right.
which the lake thing is said to have happened months later,
Yeah.
but like it's certainly easier to hide rolled up carpet in a maintenance truck or in wherever than it is to hide just a body. So,
Right.
I mean, those units were probably
And
empty for a while.
yeah. Like, if the people that worked there knew, like, that other people were, like, squatting in certain units and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like, they probably weren't going in those empty units
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Right.
They were probably more focused on, like Jennifer's unit that someone was living in and that needed to be finished.
Right. Um, I'll put this in the show notes, but if you happen to be in Florida or have any information on this, there are two tip lines. There's a Kesse family tip line. It is 941-201-4009, or the crime line, I'm guessing, Orlando's crime line, at 1-800-423-TIPS. So,
Thanks.
any other thoughts?
I'm very scared now.
Yeah. My sources are pretty brief. So, this was covered by a Fox News podcast called The House of Broken Dreams and Crime Weekly podcast. Those are the two I listened to. That's where I got everything.
That's it.
Yeah. Just
All right.
mixed my stuff together.
I'm excited for you to hear mine. Because, like, again, like, I mean, there are some similarities, I guess, but, like, it's a very different, like, situation, but, like, just some things that, like, I was like, "Oh, I just wrote about that in my case." Like,
Yeah.
Chino and Chico.
Chino and Chico. I want to
Mhm.
know Chino and Ben's real names. That's all I want to know from the FBI.
Mhm.
I don't need to know whatever you know. I just want to know their fucking names.
Yeah.
MR. What's with all the secret names?
Yeah. When I looked up the pictures from the surveillance, it scared me because, like, it looked, I don't know what I thought I saw, but, like, it just looked really creepy.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't look like a fence with a person behind it. I was like, "Oh my god, what is that?" And then I was like, "Oh wait, she told me that's what it was."
Yeah. Yeah. It's also just like.
But yeah, it's like the idea that somebody could be like, "I know who that is."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, I do think that does seem like a little unlikely given what we have. Like, if
yeah,
you already can't really trust witness statements
yeah,
most of the time, but it's like, especially if you can't even see their face. But I do think, like, if you saw him in probably an outfit like that frequently,
yeah,
and you saw the way he walks around your apartment complex, like, I mean, it's possible. And the fact that two other people ID'd him, like, feels pretty good. But
yeah,
I also think say some of your theories about Chino being, like, obsessed with these women, and if he's small and he doesn't have a car, like, he could have just been the car guy. Like, he could have
yeah,
just taken the car back. It still could be Chino, but that might not mean that, like, Chino killed her, or at least alone. So,
yeah.
who knows?
Scary, suspicious.
It is. All right, guys. Well, Mary will be back for all the episodes next week. So,
Yeah.
we'll get 2 of her.
And I get to tell my story.
Yay! Okay. See you then. Bye.
Okay. Bye.